Hi, welcome to yet another session on Thought Leaders Cafe, a platform to talk about widespread challenges and find possible solutions. Today, we'll be talking about how to navigate through layoffs. I'll be talking to Tracey Vanasco. She and I have experienced layoffs in our career, so we would like to share experiences that will help you navigate through layoffs. Stay tuned. Hi, Tracy. Thank you for joining me today on my channel.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm really excited for having this conversation today, especially about navigating through layoffs. I know almost every time I log into LinkedIn, there is someone or the other who's impacted. So I thought, we can walk through the phases of getting out of it. I have experienced that once in my career, and I know you have experienced too. So we wanted to share this with the rest of the audience. I feel it might be super useful.
Of course. Yeah, I'm always happy to help people.
When I was checking out your LinkedIn post, you wrote something about layoffs, and it was very motivating for me. That triggered this thought of why don't I talk to her about this? Because I've been through this just recently last year. And I
Mm.
would say it was painful. I mean, mostly when I was in the market, I was getting job, multiple offers within 3 weeks, but the market was so bad. I had to go through a bunch of challenges and get through it. So now I know the challenges behind what it is to be laid off, to be on the other side. Of course, as a hiring manager, you do this to the team most of the time, and you kind of think you empathize with them, you try to be kind. But when you're in their shoes, it's a totally different ball game, and that's what I experienced. And I wanted to share this here. Before we move on, can you introduce a little bit to our audience about
Oh, yes,
yourself?
absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Tracey Vanasco. I have 15 years, I think. I stopped counting of talent acquisition experience. I've filled positions from entry level all the way up to executive level positions. Executive level positions is kind of my niche. I really enjoy being in that space. And let's see, I do career consulting and I currently have my own podcast called Two Recruiters, Zero Filter.
Great.
Yeah, where we talk about hiring stuff. So yeah, we're in kind of the same space. And I exactly what I said earlier. I love helping people, so that's why I do what I do.
Awesome. Yeah, good to know. It's going to be a unique experience for me because we both can talk as a candidate and also as a recruiter and a hiring manager. So it's going to be different perspectives coming in as part of this process. So first, to get the myth out, the layoffs are not to be embarrassed about. The layoffs are not a representation of anybody's performance. It's mostly what businesses think they need to be investing in. If you happen to be in a business or an account where the organization decides not to invest in, then you're going to be impacted. So that is all it is. So there's no question of performance in this area. So there's nothing to be embarrassed about. I posted my layoff news on my LinkedIn, and I'm glad I did it because that day, of course, nobody can prepare you, So I was devastated, even though I didn't
Yeah.
show it out, right? So, and
Yeah.
I'm still on visa, so that sets me a timeline of 60 days and getting there to find the job. So if I was under pressure, and when I posted,
Yeah.
all my friends and my ex-colleagues and people who I've never spoken to for decades, they call me and they offer their support. They offer to refer me to different organizations. And whether it was fruitful or not, that's secondary, but just the confidence level that you get by just talking to people that you're not alone and the community that you've built around you, that was very motivational for me. So I feel, don't feel embarrassed. Just post it on LinkedIn, reach out to your friends and network that's happened. This is not a question of your performance in the organization. It's just you just happen to be at a place where the organization does not want to invest in. That would be it. So
Mhm.
keeping that as a context, so I would like you to talk through the experience of your layoffs that you have gone through, how it was, and how did you navigate?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm going to speak to them as a whole because I personally have been through 7 layoffs in
Oh
my
my God.
Yeah, so talent acquisition is a very volatile market, right? So we are the very first ones that organizations need when they're going to be growing a team, right? They want to bring in talent acquisition. to be able to bring people on. Well, as soon as a company starts to make a turn, some sort of downshift, and they're not hiring, they're doing some sort of hiring freeze, they might be doing layoffs, they no longer need the people who do the hiring.
Yes.
So we are typically laid off first as well. So we're usually the first in and the first out. And typically you don't hear about talent acquisition people being laid off or HR layoffs. You don't really hear about that so much on LinkedIn or in the news.
Mhm.
This year, there was an article in Forbes talking about, I believe it was Facebook or Google, but a big part of their layoffs, a huge portion of their layoffs was their talent acquisition team.
Mhm.
So that was the first time that I was like, oh my God, we made the news. People are
Yep.
talking about us. It's not just an IT layoff, right? Because when there's an IT layoff, there's other people that are responsible for hiring those IT people that they don't need anymore.
Yep.
So we get cut too. So I wanted to make sure that that was kind of put in perspective because I think that there's also this us versus them mentality when job seekers are looking for work, and people think that your talent acquisition person doesn't know what it's like to be on that side of the table. And anyone who's been in the industry for a long time, 1,000% knows what it's like to be on that side of the table. I promise you, any talent acquisition person that's been around for a while knows what it's like to be a job seeker. We have to do it on a pretty regular basis.
I'm
So,
glad I'm speaking to you on this because I feel guilty being in that bucket too. Because it's when you're in the job market, I think the most painful part of the entire job search was getting ghosted. And
mhm,
why are recruiters doing it? Because sometimes I feel it's a message to all the recruiters again. I know you're getting a lot of resumes. There are very less job openings and a lot of candidates in the market, really good candidates in the market. So if you have initiated a conversation with any of the candidate, please close the loop. You tell the candidate that you're going to go to a hiring manager and get back. Oh, you look like a good profile, but you never get back and you don't even respond to the emails. That sucks, right? So I
yeah,
feel you know that's when the recruiter versus the candidates come in. But I'm glad to hear that you are a candidate yourself and you're the first one getting impacted. It makes me feel more empathetic towards you now, because not like, oh, you're on the other side. Do you know what I'm feeling like? Now you're also feeling like what I'm feeling like. It's good to know. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Um, and so with that being said, exactly what you said about ghosting, like I have strong feelings about this too. It's really important to me that the candidates I work with have that closure. But as you said, I have a lot of applications, right? There's a lot of people that I'm talking with. I'm speaking with hundreds of people in a week sometimes, depending
Mhm.
on the type of role that I'm filling. So I always tell my candidates, this is my cell phone number, my personal cell phone number. You have my email address. If you need an update, call me, text me, whatever it is. Don't hesitate because it's your job search. So you need to take ownership of that. Don't wait for me, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes someone reaching out to me and asking me for an update is just the trigger I need to say, oh, I never heard back from that hiring man. I asked the hiring manager, they never got back to me. I totally forgot. Thank you so much for reminding me. Let me go circle back. Right.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure that candidates understand it is your job search. Take ownership of that job search. I do realize at some point you're being ghosted. You've reached out 3 or 4 times and you just wash your hands.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that people aren't feeling like they're being ghosted without trying. So try that communication, reach out, connect, I call it, pleasantly persistent. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Candidates, when they don't hear back from the recruiter, we do reach out most of the time. At least I do. I send an email and then a couple of days later send another email so it doesn't feel like a spam. So after
Right.
that, also, if they don't get back to me, and I also use different modes of communication. Either I message them or call them or ping them on LinkedIn, because I kind of assume that recruiters spend time on LinkedIn trying to find
Yeah.
candidates, but nothing has worked out for me, at least with few recruiters. And that's when it's like, you have to get a closure. otherwise it gives a hope. Maybe there is still something going on in there that I might be involved in or I might be called in. Just close the loop, right? So
Yeah.
I know few of my friends who have gone through a full interview loop, 7 8 hours of in-person interviews, and still they don't hear back from the recruiter. That's a
Yeah.
pain. Yeah,
That is so wrong. That is so
yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
Um, I mean, I have no excuse for that. Like, there's no excuse. I do want to say this though. I have been in the position where I was suddenly laid off, right? And I asked my manager when they were laying me off, can I get reach out to my candidates? They're going to think I disappeared.
Hmm.
And the answer was no. They
Oh,
would, nope, we got it. We've got access to your email. We've got it. And it like pained me. My stomach would hurt because I was like, these people think I ghosted them. These people think I disappeared on them. This is my name on the line. And I'm sure that they did not go through all of my candidates and reach out to them. I'm positive of it. So,
hmm,
as a candidate too, you know, make sure you do give some grace. Like, go double check that they're
yeah,
still there.
yeah.
Make sure they're still there. Definitely reach out. I can't tell you. I think maybe being generous, 10% of the people that I told to reach out to me actually did.
Okay,
So, there's the 90% of people, candidates, did not follow up and say,
okay.
hey, can I get an update?
Oh,
So, be sure as a candidate, you are standing out actually as someone who is very interested, someone who's proactive by
mhm.
reaching out and doing those reach outs to the recruiter when you're not getting any information.
Wow, that's a great message because I always thought like whoever is in the market for a job, if they don't hear back, they do reach out. But it looks like 90% of the people they don't reach out. That's a surprise number for me. So if
Yeah.
you're watching this, if you're in the job market, if recruiter is not getting back to you, please do reach out. So
Yeah,
give them a pace, but do reach out and through multiple modes, and then yeah, finally you can decide if you have to pursue or not. Yeah. Mm.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So so after getting this news that we are being laid off, what was your first emotional feeling towards it? You've been through it 7 times. I've just been through it once, and it was devastating. Like, how do you do this 7 times?
You get
Unbelievable number of
really good at
times.
it. You get really good.
Uh,
So for most of my layoffs, I saw them coming, right? So I'm on the inside and I see, hey, we're not filling as many jobs. There's not as many positions out there for me to work on. What's happening, right? So almost all of my positions that I was laid off on, I knew, I had a gut feeling that it was coming. There was one of them actually, I had gone on vacation. I went to India actually, and I came back, and I think I came back on a Wednesday. I was ready to come back to work on a Wednesday, and they said, "Oh, don't worry about working Thursday and
oh,
Friday,
okay.
and come into the office on Monday. We're going to have a meeting." And I told my husband, I said, "I'm being laid off." And he's like, "How could you possibly think that?" And I said, "I know it in my gut. I'm getting laid off."
Hmm.
And he kind of poo-pooed me. He's like, "You're ridiculous." I said, "I'm telling you right now that's happening, and I'm telling you also that when it does happen, I'm going to take 3 months and I'm going to do a selfless service project. I just want to go help other people for
Hmm.
3 months and not look for work. I'm just going to do stuff for other people for 3 months." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, like pat me on the head. You got this." "Sure, honey." So I go in, I get laid off. Was not a surprise. And then I did my 3 months of selfless service. So that was the first layoff where I didn't cry.
Hmm.
That was the first one where I said, you know what? I know what I'm doing next. I know what my next 3 months looks like. I'm gonna go do cool things to help other people.
Hmm.
So I sat there and listened to the HR manager who was laying me off, and he said, "Well, I know it's hard for you, but think about me. For weeks I have to be laying people off." And I was like, "Excuse me?" in my inside, I'm thinking, excuse me, but you still have a job, the
Yeah.
job you signed up for. When you
Yeah.
get into HR, that's part of the deal.
Yeah.
Um, and you're telling me. So I just smiled at him and I said, well, how can I support you? How can I help you? And he was like, I don't know what to do with this. So that was the first one where I didn't cry. But that initial emotion, even when it's coming, it does feel personal.
Yeah.
Hard to not,
Yes.
right? They
Yeah.
tell you that standard, it's not personal, it's business. They tell you that line and it doesn't hit home in your heart right away. You
Yeah.
think it's not personal to you because you're a company, but it's personal to me because these are my kids that I have to feed. This is my house that I need to pay for. These are, this is my life.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's the initial feeling of like, this hurts, right? And why me and not so and so? Right?
That's a very honest opinion, right? Yeah. Same thing happened with me. Of course, I'm in this industry for 20 years. This is the first time I was laid off. And I didn't understand the gravity of this layoff. So every time I was in the market, I always had multiple job offers in just few weeks, like
Mhm.
maximum 3 weeks. So when this time it happened, of course, I need to tell you, I also expected this to happen because in
Mhm.
my company, who was hired during COVID time, they were hired at a really high rate. And
Yep.
of course, the stock was going low, and there were a lot of things that were happening around me. And phase one was me telling my team who was laid off. And I knew it's coming to me at some point of time. So I was thinking that I'm getting prepared for it. So I was
Mhm.
getting my resume up, I was already reaching out to people. But still, when it actually happens, it happened on a regular one-on-one. It was not a different meeting setup where it can give you a hint of, oh, there's an HR meeting that's coming up, and I would know. It was a
Right.
regular one-on-one with my manager. I had my notes written, like questions and action items and whatnot. And then he joined in with the HR. I knew at
Mhm.
that moment, okay, this is happening. So this is what I was going to tell you. How much ever you think you're prepared for this, you're not. When it
No.
actually happens, it's so painful. And it's not, I don't know how to define this. Yes, there is a financial aspect to it. There is a visa aspect to it. There are logistical aspects. Sometimes it's just so emotional. We identify ourselves so much with our job. If
Yep.
somebody asks me, what do you do? It's our job, right? So
Right.
it felt like I've lost my identity that moment. So whenever I'm at a birthday party or some get together, somebody says, what do you do? I'm like, initially, I was feeling a little bit shy to tell, okay, I'm laid off.
Mhm.
But eventually, as I said, I pulled myself up and I was telling them I was laid off, I'm in the job market. But it took some time for me to get there. But if it happens again to me, would I be feeling better? I don't know. Because at this point of time, I feel, oh, I've been there, done that, I could do that. But again, you can never be prepared. So that
Yep.
emotional part definitely hurts. And especially for people with visa, given that 60-day timelines is very excruciating.
Yeah.
Because in a market like this, getting a job in 60 days, having all the paperwork done, having it filed, and have that acknowledged by USCIS within that 60 days is impossible. Again, when I started off, I thought, oh, I should be able to get a job. I've always gotten it. But it took 3 weeks just to get a response from a recruiter. I was applying and I even started to think, am I really applying? Is it even going? Is there a problem with LinkedIn? Because I'm not hearing from anybody. That's when I kind of started to understand the reality of the market so much
Mhm.
more than what I thought it was. Then I had an opportunity to move as a dependent on my husband's visa, so I get to stay in US. And then whenever
Yeah.
I get a job, I can switch back. Again, this is an information. So if the spouse is working and he or she is on a different H-1B visa, you can go as a dependent and stay as long as you want as a dependent and switch back to H-1B when you get a job. And there are a few people who don't have their spouses working. So
Hmm.
they went on a visitor visa and then they had to exit the country and come back when they got the job. So there are a few means. Of course, I'm not an immigration attorney. I'm just talking from my experience. So whoever is on visa and if you're impacted, these are a couple of options that you can think of. And also you consult an immigration attorney. They're going to be super useful to you. Yeah, so emotional part and then getting the logistics sorted out, then coming to the resume. Now getting into the action, right? So just shine your resume, brush it up. One of my friends is a recruiter too. So he reached out to me and he offered to review my resume. Ryan, he was a recruiter at Google. Now he's with SpaceX. He offered, and I thought my resume was already good, but when he took a look at it, he gave me lots of good feedback and made it concise and the things that I didn't even think of. He brought it up and I cleaned up my resume and it was good to go. And I'm super thankful to him in this forum, Resume Convoy. But again, it's good to go to a recruiter or somebody who can review a resume. So, it will be super useful because hiring managers have only a limited time to review your resume and it needs to hit, right? You need to highlight those parts of your expertise. There are a few examples I can give as a hiring manager where if you can align your resume close to the job description. Of course, you have depth and breadth of experience, and out of that, only a subset of experience matches with what you're applying for. So if you can highlight those, that catches the attention of the hiring manager.
Hmm.
Nobody is completely reading through your resume. They're just looking for those matching skills. So that's another input that I wanted to give. And I want to hear from you as a recruiter how the resume should be.
Yeah, you touched on a great point. Recruiters are using Control F.
Okay.
When we look at a resume, we know what the top keywords are that we're looking for. What are the key things that my hiring manager is looking for? And we open up that resume and we're Control F and find whatever that word is.
Okay.
So that word is going to be in the job description for sure. So if
Mhm.
there's a word that you're seeing in the job description over and over and over again, make sure you incorporate that into your resume because that's going to probably be the control F word that the
Okay.
recruiter is going to be looking for.
That's a
I
good tip.
know that, yeah, and I know that there's big talk right now about AI scanning resumes and it's not getting to recruiters. That is probably coming, but it's not there yet. We are not there yet. It is an add on to a CRM system and it's quite expensive. A lot of companies are not investing in that. It's still a very manual process. So I want to encourage candidates to, yes, align it to the job description as much as possible because as a recruiter we just need to pick up those keywords as quickly as possible, make sure they're close to the top, have a skills section and add those words in there. um, with that being said, there's an actual human looking at your resume in 90% of cases. So, I want people to understand that when they're getting rejected, a lot of times it is a person who did that. It's not auto reject from, an ATS system.
Okay.
I want to put this to bed. I am on a soapbox for this. The green banner on LinkedIn, please add it. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with it. So many people are saying, "Oh, I don't want to let people know that I've been laid off. I don't want to look desperate. I don't want the green banner." Well, do you see the purple banner when people are hiring and they have the purple banner that says hiring?
Yeah.
Well, does that make them look desperate? Do you see job posts that say we're hiring for XYZ position? Does that make the company look desperate? Does it
Mhm.
make you look at it and say, well, I don't want to work for a company who's hiring? Ugh. And so why would they say, I don't want to hire somebody who's looking for a job? That's ridiculous. So
Mhm.
I want to put this to bed, like the whole debate about the green banner. Put it up. The right organization will see that as a value and not as a deterrent. If they see it
Mhm.
as a deterrent, they're not the right organization.
Yeah,
They're
that's
being
that's well
elitist.
said. Yeah, yeah. So as a recruiter, when you search for these candidates, do you have a filter to identify these candidates who are open to work? Does that help in any filter too?
It does. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a filter for more likely to respond in LinkedIn. So if I click that button, it's people who are active on LinkedIn, people who may have the green banner, people who respond to their emails. So when I click that button, I get a much shorter list of people that are
I see.
probably going to reply to me. And as a recruiter, and I'm trying to fill a job quickly, I'm
Mhm.
going to go to that list.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a super important reason why you should be adding that tag to yourself if you're in the market.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, add the
Um,
tag and be responsive on LinkedIn.
yep, yep, yep.
Yeah.
And then, so now we've got a resume done, reviewed and done. So what are the next steps as a candidate that you would do to reach out to people with open positions?
I want to back up just one more step on the resume.
Okay.
Um, with the resume, there's another common misconception about this one-page resume thing. Don't worry about the one-page resume. It's, we want to see history. We want to see, like, if you worked at a company for 20 years and you worked your way up through that organization, kudos to you. I want to see that. That shows me that you have stability, that you can prove yourself at an organization, that people see your value. Like, I want to see that on a resume. If it takes 2, 3 pages to make that happen, do it. I want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now you may have there's people who have like 20-page resumes and it's completely unnecessary, but like a 3-page resume, fair game all day long. Once it comes into an applicant tracking system, almost all of them will convert it into a one sheet document. So we're
Okay.
scrolling through something that looks like one sheet. We're not
Mhm.
flipping pages. So I wouldn't worry about it. The length of your resume, just put everything in there that's important. Anything that you think is going to get you seen by the recruiter, add it.
Mhm.
Um, so I want to make sure that when you're doing your resume and exactly what you said, have someone review it, even if it's a friend. Sometimes just having that second set of eyes that
Yep.
says, "Oh, you used the wrong there." Or whatever it is, or you need a period here, or whatever. Have somebody just double check that resume is really, really important.
Yep.
Then
Absolutely.
it has to be a resume you're proud of. It has to be something that you're willing to share. So that leads us to our next step is get it out there. Get that
Mhm.
resume out there and whatever it takes. So reaching out to recruiters on LinkedIn, most jobs now, they'll tell you who the recruiter is. Um, what happens, what I've seen a lot is people will reach out to the recruiter and say, they'll click the button. There's like a button for some sort of a template email in LinkedIn, and we'll get
Mhm.
that templated email like 15, 20 times a day. So we don't read those anymore, right? So
Okay.
if you're using that template in LinkedIn, 9 times out of 10, you're not getting read. It's not being read because
Mhm.
we're seeing that same, it's like, when
Yeah.
you see the same alert
Yeah.
over and over and over again, it
Yeah.
loses its thing.
Mhm.
So write your own message. I encourage you to write a message to the recruiter. Hey, Mary, I saw that you have XYZ open position. I did apply for the role through LinkedIn and on your careers page on your website. I also wanted to express my interest to you. I'm a great candidate for this role because of ABC, and my availability to speak with you this week is blah, 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 right? So now you've made it super easy for that recruiter to say, oh, look, this person's a great match for my position. They have these 3 things that came out of the job description that I was looking for. And they attached their resume and they told me when they're available. So now all I have to do is hit reply. Hey, so and so, sounds great. Let's talk Tuesday at 2.
Mhm.
Right? So you want to make it as easy as possible, like a no-brainer for that
Mhm.
recruiter to just reply to you. We're all human. We want it to be easy too. We want our job to be easy.
Mhm. Yeah, of course. Everybody wants it to be easy, especially when you're flooded with lots of resumes. Somebody who stands out, somebody takes that extra effort to have that custom message giving you all the necessary information that you would need to reach out. That's amazing. That's a great feedback. I don't ever use the template too. I
Yeah.
go ahead and then see the JD, and then I highlight the areas where I fit in and the areas I don't fit in as well, because I don't want to have a conversation and then, just waste time for both of us. So this is what you're looking for, this is what I have, and this is what I do not have. Hope that's fine. And most of the time they say, oh yeah, it's fine, let's talk.
Yes.
So it's like, as long as they know that you have the ability to learn and move, and sometimes it's the domain knowledge, you can learn that. Of course there are
Hmm.
few domains. I'm in a supply chain, it's going to take years for me, but in 6 months I can get to an extent where I can do my job. So there are a few things, even though it's listed in the job profile. Check with the recruiter. If you do not have that experience, don't assume that, oh, that's a mandatory skill and you may not be eligible. But if something fits in, the technology fits in, the mind does not, or it's the other way around, I do reach out, hey, this is what I have. What do you think? And most of the
Yeah.
time they say, it's fine, let's talk. And there are a few areas where I've gone through the full loop and got the job as well in certain cases.
If you have 60% of what's on that job description, apply.
Hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, we are listing more on the job description than we need because we want to capture as many people as we want,
Yes. Yeah.
as we can get. So what we're going to do is we're going to list, 5 or 6 different things. And we're like, if we can get 2 or 3 of those in a person, that would be great.
Yeah.
But we're not limiting ourselves to just these 2 or 3. We're going to list
Mhm.
6 so we can have options.
Yeah.
So that's why you see all of those required fields or requirements or qualifications or good to have kind of things. We're trying to open the candidate pool, not close the candidate pool.
Yeah.
So keep that
Mhm.
in mind. If you have 60% of what's on that job description, apply.
Mhm. Mhm. Also, another factor where it kind of makes you feel repulsive applying is you have a really good job position. And then when you get there, and in your filters, you go there, it already says 500 applications received. Oh my God, I'm going to be lost. Is it still okay to apply? Because sometimes I think LinkedIn, if somebody has clicked on it, it kind of assumes as applied. So those
Yeah.
numbers should not make you feel like, oh, you're going to be lost. Just go ahead and still apply. Don't go by those numbers. So we do not know LinkedIn algorithm of detecting the real applications versus number of clicks.
Yes, so exactly. And LinkedIn gets paid from the companies that post jobs. They're not getting paid by the job seekers necessarily unless you're signing up
Mhm.
for some, for LinkedIn
Premium.
recruiter or whatever it is.
Mhm.
But they're getting paid from the organization. So when you're a salesperson and you go into that organization and you say, hey, we can get you 500 applications in a week, that sells it to the organization, right? They're like, oh my gosh, we're going to get 500 applications in a week. But really, it's clicks. It's exactly what you just said. If someone clicks on it and reads it and says, oh, this isn't for me, let me send it to my friend,
Mhm.
it still counts them as an application.
Yeah.
Also, please keep in mind, recruiters, we're getting inundated. We get inundated with resumes, but a huge majority of them, and this is going to depend greatly on the role that we're trying to fill, a huge majority of them are not qualified. So, especially in a market like this, where you have a lot of people laid off and a lot of people trying to claim unemployment benefits, they have to
Mhm.
apply for a certain number of positions every
Mm.
week. And they
Mhm.
may be applying for things that are a huge stretch.
Mhm.
So keep that in mind that just even though someone applied, it doesn't mean that they're qualified for the role.
Mhm.
So if you're
And then
qualified, apply.
and they're doing it intentionally just to show that they have applied. So that should not deter you from applying for those jobs, because you could be a real candidate for that job. Okay.
Absolutely. And I also believe that what is meant for you, you can't mess up. So
Yeah.
if if you are applicant number 1041, it's not going to go wrong if the job is meant for you. It's going to
Yeah.
happen for you. So
Yep.
I encourage people to always stay positive and just, if this is my job, then I'll get it. And it doesn't matter how many other people applied.
Yep. And after I do the applications, I do try to reach out to the recruiter and also the hiring manager if it is listed. Hey, I've applied for the job. The exact same custom message, and that kind of gets you into closer space with the hiring team, right? Because I've taken step to apply and also to reach out and put forth my point about my experiences. And many a times, hiring managers have responded to me and set up the interviews immediately. So that's been another way to expedite. The other way is to reach out to your friends. Referrals are awesome because you don't want to be that one candidate's resume sitting among 500 resumes. So if you can get a referral, that's where the friends and community help and colleagues, they all come handy. So if you know a job position that's open from their company, reach out to them, ask for referral, and then that definitely stands out.
Yes, for sure. 85% of positions are filled through networking.
Mhm.
So keep that in mind that if you know someone who works at that organization, ask them to refer you. In all of my positions as a recruiter, referrals came first. So if I was looking through applications and a referral was in that pile, I had to reach out to that referral within
Yep.
24 hours. It was a
Mhm.
requirement.
Mhm.
So even if they weren't qualified, I had to reach out to that referral within 24
Oh.
hours.
Mhm.
So keep that in mind. You'll probably hear from a recruiter and have the opportunity to say, I understand that this isn't the role. Do you have something else for me or something like that?
Oh, that's so sweet. I mean, even if they don't qualify, you're still reaching out. Is really amazing if it's a referral.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So once we get the resume, like get into the interview loop. So what are the preparations that you do to get to the interview loop?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So for me, I'm old school. I'm pen and paper, so I print out my job description, and right next to it, so that job description is your cheat sheet. Right next to every single bullet, I write down where I did that thing and write an example, give myself a reminder of an example. So when that question is asked, because especially the recruiter is going to look through and they just want to check boxes. Okay, they've done this, they've done this, they've done this. And so whenever they ask me that question, I have my cheat sheet. I'm not afraid to admit it. Yes, I prepared and I have my cheat sheet of so I can very quickly say, oh, I did this at this company. This is how it worked. This is, the STAR method, if you're familiar with the STAR method. So
Mhm.
situation, task, action, and results. So you want to answer the questions in that way.
Mhm.
And then, you know, use that job description as your cheat sheet 100%. So that's how I
Yep.
prepare. Do your research on the organization. Make sure you understand at least what they do.
Mhm.
You don't have to memorize you've been in business since 1951. I don't care that you know that. But at least know what we do.
Mhm.
If you see some news that we may have been in the news recently, bring that up, right? So
Mhm.
that shows me that you're interested, that you're prepared, that you're engaged in this process. I cannot
Mhm.
tell you how many times as a recruiter I talk to somebody and they would literally say, "I forget the company or the job that I applied to. Can you remind me?"
Mm.
And I'm like, just
Oh.
floored. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, sure. Right. Like, and I'm kind and I will remind them, but in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, that's a little ding. And
Yeah.
now they need to pull themselves out of that hole through the rest of the interview because they weren't prepared. And
Yeah.
I scheduled the call with them. So they knew I was calling.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the part. When you know you're going to talk to somebody from an organization, you should be prepared. And there are lots of resources. Their website, they can tell you what products they have, what services they have, and there are YouTube channels, and then annual meetups, and there are presentations by their CEO talking about their future vision. So if you're aligned like that, and you have to make the interview team feel that you're part of their team, that's where
yeah,
your success comes in. So, in order to talk their language, it's always important to understand what they do. And sometimes, if it is very different from what you've been doing, I sometimes admit this is all I know, this is what I'm trying to do. But I think the effort is appreciated that you've tried. I know you
right.
could. I could be wrong just by watching a YouTube video. My interpretation could be wrong, but the effort and the trust that I'm building, that I'm interested in your business, and I want to be part of your organization, shows up clearly when you do your homework. That's very
Totally.
important. I completely agree. And from an engineering manager point of view, or as an engineer, have been both the roles.
Hmm.
Interviews are very different from what we do in day-to-day jobs, especially for the engineers. So, since we're talking very generic here, so again, we have to get into some of the companies, they do lead code, right? Interviews. Sometimes we don't even write those algorithms in our day-to-day life. Unfortunately, you have to start brushing up on that. And as an engineering manager, you have to get all those scenarios that you've undergone. There are standard questions that are being asked. Questions are standard, but answers are based on your experience in your career. Even though you have gone through all of them, unless you brush up and go over those questions, or which scenario that I executed matches with this question, it does not come up right away in the interview. It needs preparation. So I do have questions and scenarios, and sometimes scenarios from different companies. So it doesn't feel like a cookie cutter answer that I'm just saying the same thing from a single organization. So I do go
Yep.
back and do my homework as an engineering manager. That's super useful. And again, when you start those interviews and those questions come, they kind of warm you up. I've never cleared my first interview. So it's just, you're coming out of your everyday job. It's so different, and then in an interview, it's very different. The way you talk, the way you present, the data that you have in your mind is very different, so you have to prepare. And as you go through the interview, it warms you up and it becomes natural eventually.
Yep.
And this cycle repeats every time you're in the job market. It's not like you've been there, done that. You can just get in and get the job. It doesn't happen. You still need to prepare. Technologies change so often. You need to
Yeah.
definitely update yourself. Even as an engineering manager, any level of engineering, you need to get yourself updated with the technology. Just understand the way the market goes, pros and cons of the processes, and all the experiences that have gone through with your team. You have to just run through in your mind as though you're walking through your memory lane, and be prepared
Yep.
for those answers. Of course, there are going to be some questions that come and you're not prepared for. You can take a moment to think and then respond to. Nobody's going to say, "Oh, you're not prepared." No, they know that there are a few things that you have to think through. So it's
Hmm.
fine. So think through and provide, but doing homework always helps a lot. So brush up your resume, reach out to your friends, brush up your skills, and definitely prepare for each of the interview that aligns with that organization and the role. That will definitely get you there.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I can talk about this all day, every day. This is my passion, is helping people get their next job. I love especially helping people who've been through a layoff because um, I've done it so many times that I feel like I've experienced every single emotion through the entire gamut, and I can sit beside each person and say, "Yep, I've been there. I understand."
Yeah.
You know, and we're going to move forward. So, um always have I encourage people, keep a positive mindset. Um don't obsess over your job search. I've seen a lot of people, especially as you mentioned in your situation, where you're in a time crunch and you feel like you have to be looking for a job 12 hours a day, every single day. And what happens is you get burned out,
Yes.
right? And it shows, it comes across. So when you're in a job search, I encourage you to spend maybe 4 hours a day doing your job search activities. So, looking through LinkedIn, looking through the job boards, checking websites for organizations that you want to be working for, talking with other people, attending events, right? Getting your face out there, posting on LinkedIn, right? So, do these activities for 4 hours a day. Spend the rest of your time doing things that nourish you, that feed you, that make you feel good about yourself and who you are. Because the people who don't take care of themselves at their core, it starts to show up in their interviews, right? That
Yes.
they're stressed and they're scared and As a talent acquisition person, most of us are very in tune with other people's emotions. We're very in tune with you. We're reading your body language. We're reading into what you say, not just the words that you say, but how you say it.
Yes.
So please be mindful that you need to take care of yourself first, and then the job search will take care of itself. It will. As long as you're doing all of the things, it'll happen.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah, so I
Yes.
want to ask you, you kind of alluded to the fact that you were one of the stressed people that was looking all the time.
Yep.
How long did it take until you realized you were seeing the same jobs over and over and over again?
Ah, oh my God, that is it probably like a month you would see the same thing over and over again. And there have been cases where the job says like let's say I apply and then it sends me an email, the candidate is already found and it's closed, but when I do a job search it's still open, so that's confusing. The LinkedIn still shows me that status is open and actively people are applying. I can see the count going up, so it was very confusing for me. So I wish some, yeah, when a job gets closed, I want the recruiters to take that off of, the LinkedIn or wherever it is. So sometimes
Yeah.
it's there, and it gives me a feel that you could still go and apply. And another pain point I really wanted to bring in here is sometimes the applications are, I think it's a Workday applications. I'm not sure. So it's just fill in every single thing. I have 20 years of experience, and you want to go from all of my education, 20 years, date was started, date ended, and that's what I have my resume for. Why am I
Right.
filling it in all the time? And imagine the amount of jobs that I have to apply to, and if I have to enter this information over and over and over, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
I like the LinkedIn, just a single form of application where I just fill in my basic information, upload a resume. Resume has all the information, so why do I have to repeat that in the form? So I wish companies just stick to the simple way of applying, take the resume and go through that rather than asking the candidates to fill in a form after form after form. I sometimes fill in just the latest ones and leave the rest,
Yeah.
because I just get tired, because I'd say refer the resume. I don't know what the recruiters will think of that, but yeah, it's very painful when you're applying for multiple jobs. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So I was laid off. I've been laid off several times with groups of people, not, just by myself. So I get to experience it and walk through it with other people. And I have the mentality of, hey, I'm going to do this for 4 hours and then I'm going to go do something else, right? When I'm laid off is when I do stuff that I don't normally have time to do when I'm working. So I foster dogs or I volunteer or like I use that time to do something that
Mhm.
makes me feel good. And then on the flip side, I have watched other people who were frantically looking for work 12 hours a day, right? And within a couple of weeks, they would come to me and say, there's no jobs left out there. I've applied to them all and I'm seeing the same jobs over and over and over again, and I don't know what to do. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. Every day I log in, I feel like there's something new because I didn't obsess over it for 12 hours yesterday. Um, so just keep that in mind. Like if you're looking for 12 hours or whatever hours a day, you're going to run out of things to look at pretty quickly. And then it feels defeating when you
Yeah.
look at jobs and it's just the same couple of jobs over and over again. And then, as you mentioned, a lot of times jobs don't come down. To be fair, a lot of organizations have recruiters and recruiting coordinators, and a recruiting coordinator is typically responsible for the posting of the jobs and taking them down.
Hmm.
So even though we take the responsibility for it, um, in the eyes of the public, a lot of times there's additional people on our team who are responsible for that part of the
Hmm.
the process. Workday, I am with you. I It is all about how it gets set up, and if companies don't take the time to set it up correctly, it really is so just a painful process for the
Yeah.
applicant. So I
Yeah.
I feel you, and to be honest, we don't even look at what you enter, we're looking at your resume. So
Yep.
exactly what you did is fine. Just put in your most recent job and then skip forward to the next thing because we're just wanting to get to your resume.
That's really comforting to me.
Yeah.
Every few jobs, I did not even want to apply because it's just pages and pages of application. I would rather do a five more application rather than this one application, right? So that's
Yeah.
what I did. And then coming back to your point about just don't go frantic about applying the job. So it's about fear of missing out. There are few
Mhm.
jobs. If it is really from a good company, they come in and then they don't take applications anymore after they've received, let's say, 500 applications. So I feel if you're not there when that posting happens and that limit exceeds and you're not able to apply, then you've lost an opportunity. So that was one of the drivers where fear of missing out, that I'm probably, missing out something that's out there for me is is one of the reasons why it happened. And probably they are rare. It's not like it closes on the same day. There are many jobs that stays forever. I mean, just spoke, so
Yeah.
it does give you an opportunity, but there are few which closes down as soon as it hits the max limit. So, how
Yeah.
do you want to approach that?
Yep. So I approach life from an abundance mindset. And I believe that exactly what I said earlier, what's meant to be for me, it will happen, right? So I may log in and in my 4 hours of searching, that's the job that pops up. I apply and it's meant for me and it'll all work out. If it's not meant for me, I won't hit it at the right time. I just won't hit it at the right time, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So there's two different mindsets, and you can have a scarcity mindset where you feel like there's only so much out there and I need to get to it, or the abundance mindset where you know that the right thing that's meant for you will come to you. You don't have to chase it.
Mhm.
So, it depends on your individual, background and your how you look at life. And
Mhm.
so for me, it took me a long time to get to a place where I knew every single layoff brought me to a better job, a better place, more
Yeah.
money every single time. And every
Yeah.
time I was like, but I love the job I'm in. I'll never find something as good as this. And then I found something better and better and better and better. And so once you've done it 7 times, you just relax into it and you're like, okay, it didn't take me 7. It took me maybe 5. Where I just relaxed into it and I'm like, okay, I know how to do this. We know what we're doing. The right thing will come along and it will be bigger and better than I ever imagined. So if you
Mhm.
come into a job search thinking that way, that's exactly what will happen for you.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think for you, it worked out that way too, right? Like you
Oh,
got a
yeah.
better job than what you had.
Yes. Yeah, I love the company I'm working in currently. It's so much more peaceful than what I had earlier. And I love my team. I'm really happy here. Whoever asks me, Aruna, how are you doing? I'm really happy with my job now.
Yeah.
It's really amazing to be working around those very talented, very kind people. That's what I love about.
Mhm.
And as you said, I've always gone to a better company and better pay and better opportunities. So this is an opportunity. So when it hits you first time, it's a struggle to navigate, and that's the very intent of this meeting. If it happens to you, you're not alone. Everybody goes through this, and this is the path we have taken, and you can get there. So don't stress out. So I think we have gotten everything that we wanted to get here. More than the conversation about the layoffs, it has become like a therapy session for me with you. And then talking about abundance and not the scarcity level, and what comes to you will always come to you. That's a good way of looking at it. I really enjoyed this conversation, Tracy. Is there anything else you want to add before we wind up?
No, I just want to say, for everybody out there, you're not alone. Even if you feel alone, you're not alone. There are thousands of people in the very same boat as you. And there's a collective energy going your way that we are all thinking really positive thoughts to boost you and your confidence. So please just know you're not alone. We're out here for you. There's people out here for you. There's a, ton of resources for you. Please listen to my podcast, Two Recruiters, Zero Filter. We're here for you too. This YouTube channel, like it's all here for you. We want to help. So allow people to help you, allow people to offer their hand.
Will you share your podcast link? I can put it in the video when I post it so people can really enjoy watching your podcast too.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, thanks so much, Tracy. It was amazing talking to you. We will have more
Same.
sessions later on different topics, but it was wonderful talking to you. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.